Okay. What do you think, Neil? Should we get started? I'm going to record. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am going to ask that if you are not on mute while we start the presentation, that you pop yourself on mute, and that if you have any questions you at any point or comments, you can unmute yourself or send a message in the chat and we will call on you. So welcome T20, who is now T21. For those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Lori Field, and I am the Associate Executive Director at the JCC and also the Camp Director at Seneca Lake. And Amy, Neil, and myself are really, really excited that all of you could join us on Zoom tonight to spend some time talking. We've heard some feedback from some of our T21 families about questions and some concerns. And so we thought it would be really great to pull everybody together and have a special Zoom session for just our Tusk families. So I apologize if some of this information in advance is repetitive, but I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to hear about our plans for this summer. And if there's anyone from our Tusk group that isn't here, that can't make it, we are going to be recording tonight, and we'll pop that up online so that.
Ma'am, do you want to listen? Do you want to join the Zoom too?
Oh, if I could just ask if you're not on mute, please mute. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. So thanks again, guys, for joining. We're excited that you all could be here. So I have been starting every presentation with a regrounding of what Camp Seneca Lake is and what our mission is. And I think that in all of the chaos from learning about COVID back in March to canceling camp and now trying to figure out what our plans are for summer 2021, Amy, Neil, and I always find that regrounding ourselves in our mission is really important to remind us of why we do what it is that we're doing. So the mission for Camp Seneca Lake is to provide a fun, adventurous program with immersive experiential learning that builds Jewish identity, facilitates personal exploration, cultivates an appreciation of nature, and establishes the importance of Jewish community. So as you may have heard if you've attended another session with us, the American Camping Association recently published an article a few weeks ago titled 2021 Looks to be Another COVID-19 Summer, Camp in the Time of COVID-19. And the article goes into pretty great detail discussing how camps that operated last summer in 2020 reported a camp reimagined experience with their dates shifted, with their occupancies limited, with public health measures in place and programs altered to meet the new reality of the pandemic. So our goal tonight is to talk to you about how we plan to open up camp this summer, what our plan is for T21 as it stands today, and how we're going to continue to work with you guys as a group and us together as a camp family as we learn more information along the way. So it's important for you guys to know that we are not operating alone in a bubble. Since the pandemic started back in March, we have surrounded ourselves by incredible people across the country, from other camps to health organizations to the Jewish Camping, the Jewish Community Center Association, and the American Camping Association. So this just gives you a brief little snippet into all the incredible organizations that we're partnering with to try to make sure that we can really have a healthy and fun summer. So what does that mean for us? A lot of camps actually have decided that they're not going to open registration quite yet, and that they're going to wait until they know more information into the winter and in the spring. And Amy, Neil, and I really felt strongly, as did the JCC and Josh Weinstein, our CEO, that we needed to open registration earlier for our families. We needed to start having the conversations about what camp was going to look like. We needed to put together some scenario plans and to see how our community feels and to start our planning. So we're going to walk through what these plans look like. And we recognize that while these are our plans, so many of the specific strategies are still in development and they're subject to change. And that's the most important thing to know, is that we are just going off of our gut right now and of what we've learned. And we're going to have to follow the recommendations of New York State and of Yates County. So overarching for camp, and then we're going to get specific to what you guys are here for, which is Tusk, but they're all in all a part of a bigger picture, is that, typically we usually have around 250 kids per session at camp. And with the limitations, the space limitations, and with reducing capacity in our cabins, we can accommodate 158 campers per session, with our youngest campers entering 4th grade. So you guys know, many of you started camp entering 3rd grade. Some of you who maybe live outside of New York State snuck in and started camp entering 2nd grade because you were the right age. So we've aged up camps to help kind of reduce the footprint of the grades that are coming to camp to help with our housing accommodations. So as you guys know, in the past, we've had 2 3.5-week sessions where we've had, 250 kids, 200 to 250 kids. And now we can only have 158. And so if we were to have continued with that 3.5-week model, we would have literally had to go to a lottery system where people would have put in, a lottery ticket to see if they could come to camp. And that's not who we are. And that's not who our community is. So the first thing that we had to do in making these decisions was to think about how we could create a structure for Seneca Lake this summer that allowed as many of our campers to be able to attend camp as possible. And we're not talking about going out and trying to find hundreds of brand new campers. We're talking about, first and foremost, making sure that our campers who attended camp in 2019 and our campers who had registered for 2020 would have a spot. We know that there's going to be out-of-state travel guidelines that's going to affect our campers and our staff. And we're not going to know what those are until right before camp starts. And so we have plans in place to be able to make sure that we are flexible and accommodating as we learn more. We talked about the capacity modifications. We know that there's going to be COVID-19 testing. And the truth of the matter is that we don't know what that's going to look like yet because we aren't the experts. So what we're going to be doing is putting together over the next couple of weeks a COVID-19 medical task force that will consist of doctors and physicians in the community. Hold on one second. If you're not on mute, just want to make sure. Okay, there we go. Found it. Sorry about that, guys. So if you, we're gonna pull together our doctors and physicians and our medical experts within our community to really help us to be able to understand the research as it comes out and be able to make decisions about how to best use masks and how to best define cohorts, because each of us have a different definition of what cohorts looks like. We had to make the unfortunate decision to suspend transportation for summer 2021. So we will not be able to offer transportation to and from camp. And those details will be coming out more as we get closer to camp, what the drop off and pickup procedure will look like. And then we had to make the unfortunate decision along those lines that travel outside of camp will be limited. Travel via bus outside of camp will be limited. So you guys know that when we go places, we sardine pack you because we all love each other, that we could share, put multiple kids to a seat. And in a COVID world that we really need to have one kid per seat. And that would require us to have significantly more buses, which would increase our prices to a place that wouldn't be, it wouldn't be profitable for us. We wouldn't even be able to break even with that. And so for right now, that is the decision that we made. So I'm going to, Neil, I'm going to ask if you want to jump in and talk about this slide.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Neil, Assistant Director for Camping at the JCC. So these are just some things that we decided or had conversations about really hoping to keep intact as it pertains to the senior camper program for 2021, knowing that we're going to be operating, or assuming that we're going to be operating in a COVID world for the summer. So when Lori mentions that we had to decrease capacity in camp just at large, we decided that it was really important for us to try and not decrease capacity for Tusk. And we were able to do that by shifting some things around and rearranging. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But just so that it's out there for everybody to hear, we really tried hard to preserve as much of the Tusk experience as we could, knowing what we know about the situation. So there are 4 sessions at camp this summer, 3 2-week sessions and 1 1-week session. And then the senior campers will be in attendance for all 4 of those. So the senior camper experience is not any shorter than it has been in the past. It'll be a full summer experience. All senior campers, anybody who is going to be rising 11th grader, will be living in the same village, in sort of like the co-ed experience that we talked about. And then the other thing that we were able to preserve was the rustic environment that we all know and love with Tusk. And we're going to talk more about tents in a moment, but we are able to preserve some of what that looks like for the Tusk experience of the summer.
You ready for the next slide?
Totally. So here are some things that we were able to preserve, and some new things just based on how the program is looking at this point in the COVID world. So on the left side here, we have like the traditional experiences that one could expect from Tusk, and then some of the new stuff down here. So I'll just run through this real quick. But traditionally, Tusk is the whole Tusk summer is a leadership experience for the senior campers. So there will still be opportunities for them to take on some of that leadership stuff, like the Big Little program, like having a featured role in some of our all camp programs and signature programs. There will still be the triathlon. They're still going to live in a co-ed village. T groups are when we divide Tusk for like daily programming for the senior campers going around and doing different activities at camp. With 45 campers, I imagine there's going to be 4 Tusk groups, so 11 or 12 senior campers in each group, and they'll be able to go around to activities. We can't have 45 Tusk campers all go to, I don't know, ceramics at the same time, but we can have 11 or 12. So we'll split Tusk into T groups. Apparel is very important. Everyone loves a good t-shirt, sweatshirt, sweatpants, whatever it might be this summer. So we're able to keep that intact. And as I mentioned, with 4 sessions, we have 4 opportunities for a banquet type event here for Tusk. So more details on that as we get closer to the summer. Some new things that we have to consider and think about. We're planning right now to have the senior campers all live in the village of Mohawk. As I was talking with sort of like the rustic thing, the not having a bathroom in the living space, being off on their own in the woods, Mohawk is the closest to that we can get. The bus trips outside of camp, we are suspending those for now, as Laura just mentioned. So the intersession programming will look different than a 5-day out of camp road trip on a tour bus, but there will be programming happening during intersession. Bike trips, kids getting on bikes and bringing themselves around the world is very different than sitting on a bus. So we're anticipating being able to do a lot more with the bicycles. Intersession, most of the campers that attend our camp sessions will be going home at the end of 2 weeks, and maybe they'll be coming back for more sessions. Maybe they'll be staying for our short and sweet intersession camp. But As I mentioned before, Tusk is there for the full summer, so they will have special programming taking place during the 3 intersessions that exist in the current schedule. And then virtual visiting day, because we are unsure of what actually coming onto campus, coming onto 200 Camp Road looks like for our staff and for our campers. We've decided right now to start planning for virtual visiting day rather than parents coming down and spending the afternoon with the Tusk campers before they go on their trip at the end of session 1. We're going to find ways to still have campers and parents interacting, and thankfully we have like FaceTime and Zoom and Skype, and we're all very familiar. So we're going to be able to fill in some visiting days virtually throughout the summer.
Great, thank you, Neil. And the one thing I know, Neil, that you and I talked about wanting to mention is that we will be able to transport bikes from Rochester. And so details on that to come, but we will make sure that we can help get bikes and talk about that further as we understand where people are coming from. But we know that not everybody has a bike rack, and so we want to make that easy for you. So let's talk a little bit about what life at CSL looks like in terms of the schedule. So for our senior campers, for you guys, schedule is going to look the same. So we wanted to give you a snapshot of what a 1 week schedule would look like. And the reason that we wanted to show this to you was because we felt like it was really important for you to see that a lot of the components of what makes camp unique and wanting to be at camp, not wanting to be at camp because it might not feel like camp, is still there. So we're still planning for signature programs. We're still going to have Shabbat. We're still going to have ACPs and village nights and bunk nights. Yes, they might look a little bit different, but we know that everything that we're doing right now is looking a little bit different. And that if there's anybody that can pull together an incredible program, it's our staff. And with the help of our young leaders like our Tusk group, we know that we can do some really amazing things. I feel, there's this consistency for all of the kids who are going to come to camp all summer long that might come for these 2 week sessions, that our Tusk group is going to be that consistent force, that ruach and that spirit that will be there, that will be able to welcome these campers and really help to make sure that they have an incredible summer while you're also having an incredible summer yourself. So Neil, Amy, and I are really excited about being able to add some new traditions into the senior camper program, and to have you guys be our partners in helping to make sure that some of those younger campers are getting an incredible experience through your lens. So for our parents out there, we're just going to briefly go through the finances and the rates, and then we're going to get to all the questions and have a chat. So our prices at the base price was reduced from 2020. So you can see what the rates are that are up there. Some things to note about our pricing. So our cost to open camp does remain the same. As you guys know, for camp as a whole, because we're reducing the amount of kids that can be at camp per session, we still have to cover those costs. And there is going to be an increase in food costs. And that's something that we needed to take into consideration when looking at our price structure. So we still need to work on what this looks like for the Tusk program. We know that for our regular campers, and it could remain the same, that it's if COVID is still prevalent in June, that we're kind of putting a disclaimer out there that we may need to charge an additional $100 per camper per week. And this would cover things like PPE and additional healthcare staff and the cleaning and disinfection supplies, hiring extra cleaning staff, and all the changes that need to be made around camp. So you think about the water fountain at the office, which is just a regular drinking fountain. We'll have to make that one of the machines that you fill up your water bottle. And so renting tents and having all of those changes made costs money. And so that's where that additional fee may come from, excuse me. So for our senior camper program, there is no additional fee for intersession camp. And so we want to make sure that you guys know that, because in the paperwork, For every other group, there is a fee to stay at camp. So just a couple of important things that we wanted to make sure parents that you're aware of. So COVID-19 has impacted our finances really significantly at the JCC, and we had to make some really difficult decisions in order to ensure the financial viability of our center, our JCC, as well as Camp Seneca Lake. So our decisions to change some of these policies, we did not take lightly. We certainly understand the financial impact of all of our families now more than ever, but needed to make some changes in order to be able to help make sure that camp stays open. So while we've historically honored out-of-town JCC memberships, we've actually never received financial contributions from those JCCs to help cover the difference in cost. So this year we will be required, in order to get the JCC member discount, you will need to be a member of the Rochester JCC. We have really incredible membership options now, and the smallest membership that you can get is a single parent family membership. And it actually works itself out that you could still get a discount even by just joining the JCC. To be able to get that discount, it could work in your benefit if you're at camp all summer, especially if you have multiple kids coming to camp. Along those lines, and again, we recognize the significance of this, but we are unable to offer sibling or refer a friend discounts at this time. Deposits will remain fully refundable until we receive word from New York State and from Gates County that we can open and operate camp. So this part's really important. So you are going to, hopefully register, you're going to apply to register for camp. Amy, our wonderful assistant director of camp operations, will be processing your application, and then we will be charging your deposit. That deposit will stay fully refundable until we get this update. Once we get the update, we will then update our COVID-19 playbook. We will have community Zoom sessions like we've been doing to let you know if there's been changes to our plan, if we've had to pivot the plan at all. And then at that point, you could make a decision that perhaps camp isn't for you and we would refund your money, or you would proceed forward and at that point start paying for camp. We recognize that we might not get this notice until right before camp opens. And so we will be working with the JCC and Amy will be spearheading, making sure that we can work with you in paying for camp and recognizing that large sums of money in one fell swoop is really challenging. And so we will work with the JCC on what that looks like. In full transparency, we don't have our specific policies past that yet. We wanted to focus on getting registration open. And then once we have that word from the state and from the county that we can operate, we will then release what our guidelines will be for refunds once camp opens and all of those God forbids and those what ifs. We still have financial aid and campership that you can apply for. The one thing that looks a little bit different this year is that we are going to have our financial aid application period open from, well, it's open now until December 31st. In previous years, it's been open rolling admission, and that really hasn't allowed us to plan appropriately and understand how we can best support our families. So once the application period closes, we'll then review all the applications and be able to award money. With this said, we recognize that life happens, tragedies happen, people lose their jobs, they have unexpected medical bills. And so we also want you to know that we're always going to be here. And so if something comes up outside of this window and you need to chat, please call us. We would never not want one of our campers to be able to attend camp because something changed in your lives. So we are going to, I'm going to end this slideshow so that I can see everybody, and then we're going to chat. So let's start with the questions that are in the chat box, and then we'll open it up for people who might want to unmute themselves and ask questions. So the first question we have is, so do you predict that people coming from out of state will have to quarantine, or does it just depend on the state? So that's a great question. And the truth is that we're not going to dictate that. The state and the county are going to dictate what that looks like. You've got our word that we are going to stay in touch with all of our camp families frequently. I imagine that as we, move into the late winter, early spring, that we'll be getting together on Zoom, or you'll be getting information from us on the monthly as we're learning more things. But as some of you know who live in New York State, we went to work today and thought that you could go out to a restaurant at 11 o'clock till 11 p.m. And then by this afternoon, we found out as of Friday, restaurants have to be closed as of 10 p.m. So rules are always changing, but you have our commitment that we're going to remain flexible and work with you as we learn those things together. There was a question if people could volunteer to help drive places. Gutkins, are you referring to the fact that we've suspended trips? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
So I would say that unfortunately, I'm not sure that that's something that we would be able to do. There would be a lot of liability and risk in having campers in other parents' cars. And with COVID and contact tracing and expanding our bubble, I think that could prove to be really challenging, but a really creative idea. Let's see. Where is Mohawk going to be? Great question. Neil, do you want to talk about our living assumptions?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And the reason why we had to move Tusk, the senior campers from the village of Tuscarora, is because of our tent platforms. At this moment in time, we're assuming that we will need 6 feet of distance between sleeping spaces for campers, and our tent platforms can't accommodate that. But our village of Mohawk can accommodate that. So we moved the senior campers to Mohawk. We've moved the Mohawk campers to the village of Cayuga, and Cayuga is historically has a smaller population. Cayuga and Onondaga historically have a smaller population. So those younger campers will be sharing the village of Onondaga. We have separate cabins on separate sides of the village there, and there's plenty of space for, based on the numbers of who was registered in 2020, to accommodate those campers, those younger campers all together. Seneca will stay in the village of Seneca, and most likely staff will be living in the village of Tusk because of our limits on how many people can be in our cabins because of the 6 feet thing.
Right. Neil, while you are, oh, you went off, come back off of mute. This is a perfect question for you to answer. Will our staff be the same as they would have been in summer of 2020?
I can't speak to whether or not the staff will be the same. What I can speak to is that on Friday, we are opening our staff applications, and any staff or anybody that is eligible to work in New York State can apply for jobs. If all of the Tusk staff from 2020 apply and they all get a job, then yeah, sure, it might be the same staff. But as we all know, people grow and things change, and people graduate college or move on. They can't continue to come to camp. So I don't know if the staff will be the same, but they all have the opportunity to apply and to try and come back. That's for certain.
Thanks, Neil. I'm going to continue to go in order, but I'm going to combine two questions. So there's a question about whether you have to wear masks in your own village, and if you would have to social distance from everyone in your village as well. So that's a great question. So this past summer, when we ran our family getaways and our retreat weekends, the policy that we had was that if you were outside and socially distanced, that you did not need to wear a mask. If you were inside and closer than 6 feet to each other, then we asked you to wear a mask. And if you were in your own living space, then you did not need to wear a mask. So those guidelines feel great. I think that we're going to learn a lot more from the CDC and from the American Camping Association and from the state and the county. And we're going to go based off of what they tell us. And we're gonna adapt those rules. So I can't answer 100% what it's going to mean, but I know that I know that we can still have fun, and I know we can still do it. Neil, sorry, I was thinking about that. Neil, Amy, and I wore masks all summer long, every single day. And we took mask breaks and we walked away from people so that we could do that. And I don't want that to be a hindrance for us. So in terms of social distancing from everyone in your village, so it's a great question. So unless we hear differently, we're considering Tusk one cohort. So whereas there are bunks, let's say O1 is their own cohort and C1 is their own cohort, and they're going to travel. And if God forbid someone were to get sick, they would all, need to test and quarantine. Unless we hear differently, the plan we have right now is that Tusk would be one village together. That's our hope and our intention. And if we hear anything different, then you guys will be the second to know after we tell each other. Neil, do you want to talk about how many people are in each cabin?
Certainly. So there's enough space in the cabins across camp to accommodate 6 or 8 campers and 2 staff. So some of the cabins in Mohawk, or one of the cabins in Mohawk, can fit, I believe, 8, and the rest can fit 6 campers with 2 staff as well.
Great, thank you. So lots of questions about testing.
Wait, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
About that. Is it's not boys and girls together? It's just a cabin for girls and then a cabin for boys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait, would the staff be in the cabins with us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So questions about testing. So there's a bunch of different questions about rapid testing, and if we did tests, why couldn't we do certain things? So again, when we made these initial decisions, we had to make decisions based on the information that we knew. Right now, we don't know if we'll have access to enough rapid testing. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. And we don't know if that's going to check the boxes that are required to be able to open up camp, or if there's going to be an and statement, other things that are required. So without having more information about rapid testing and about how those would be integrated into a camp environment, we had to do the best that we could of saying that would be a great that would be a great thing that we could do. But we also know that you could have a rapid test upon arrival from camp and then become symptomatic 2 days later. So we want to be conservative in our approach to stay healthy, as we know that we can't have families completely quarantined for 2 weeks, because then we wouldn't be able to run all of camp. We're certainly going to ask families before camp to be smart and make good decisions and take their temperatures, but that there isn't guarantees. So again, things could change. We are fully prepared to pivot any plan and to change things as we learn more, but this felt the most comfortable for us as information stands for today. Question about if there's any possible way to have visiting day if people get tested. Yes, we recognize that 7 weeks is a really long time, and if there's any visitors for Shabbat. So as of right now, we have suspended visitors beyond our camp program, again, to help with reducing the footprint of people who are in camp, and that concern that even if you have a test and you test negative, what we know right now is that you could then become symptomatic 2 days later, and that there's a possibility of spread. Again, there's nothing that is off the table, except the only thing that we won't risk is our health and safety. So as we learn more, we will certainly be able to go through some of these scenarios again and think about them. And while there's no replacement to a physical hug and to being with your family, as Neil stated, we are really committed to making sure that there's opportunities for virtual visiting days, and that we find ways to be creative and innovative in making sure that you can stay connected to your camper. So if you get tested, why can't you live in tents? Lissa, I think that goes along with what we said, which is that, just because you get tested and you're negative doesn't mean that you won't get it. So in other camps that ran last summer, some of the camps that really did an extraordinary job got tested upon arrival, and then they quarantined within their living space for 2 weeks, and they didn't interact with anybody else. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, then they took another test, they were negative again, and then their camp came together. So I think having you live in tents where we can't maintain that 6 feet of distance and sleeping puts us at an increased risk that we're just not willing to take right now. We have been in touch with our Department of Health assessor, and she's aware that our platform tents are a really important part of our camp and a defining moment for our campers, and that without them, we have less space for people to live. And that's concerning. And she is really committed to helping us continue to think creatively if there's options that might come up. But again, we had two choices. We could say, we don't know if Tusk could even happen, or it can happen and we're just going to reimagine it. And maybe, just maybe, something might change. But we didn't think it was that fair to wait. I'm just seeing what else we have. Let's see. Okay, Neil, this one's for you. Will there be any major camp programs, fight song, color war, mass program? And if not, what will we do instead?
So the short answer is yes, there will be. The long answer is that they will, like everything else, be reimagined. Think fight song, think about 60 people on stage singing in close quarters with an OREC full of 300 other people. That's just not going to work in a COVID world. So that, we have to rethink what that looks like. So there will be signature programs of some kind, mass program, CSL run, I don't know, triathlon, you name it. It'll happen in some form, but what that looks like right now, we can't comment on because of the changing landscape of what operating a summer camp during a COVID world looks like.
Thanks, Neil. Question came in about choosing our bunks. So I can close my eyes and I can remember my CIT summer, our unit heads turning to us and telling us to figure out our tents situation. I don't remember how many girls there were. There were like 30 of us, and it took us 12 hours to figure out our living situation. It was our first exercise in leadership and teamwork, and it took us 12 hours. We haven't figured out what that looks like, but of course we're going to take your requests just the way that we would if you were regular campers. We recognize how important this summer is for you guys, and we don't want to do things that would upset you. So we're going to work with you to work on the cabins, and just know that, of course, the cabins is only just the place you sleep. And so, but we also will take that into consideration and do the best that we can. Will staff be allowed to leave camp? So great question. So last summer, when we initially rolled out this plan for CSL getaway weekends, we told our staff initially and all of the families that were coming that once you were on camp, you could not leave under any circumstances. And then the numbers in Yates County were really low, knock on wood. And so we felt like the staff could go out as long as every time they came back, they had their temperature checked, they filled out a health assessment, and they recorded on our log where they were for contact tracing. Now we had a much smaller staff. Our staff, our young leaders, our young alumni who are considering applying for camp know that there's a very good chance that they won't be allowed out of camp. The same way that we're telling you that there's a lot of these what ifs, we are being fully transparent with them for that. And we're planning to make sure that we have extra snacks for them and that they're well fed. But there's a very good chance that we may decide that they can't go out of camp, and that's in the best interest of our safety. Again, I think that that's going to come down to working with Yates County and with New York State and the American Camping Association on best practices at that time. Is it possible to just limit the amount of people in tents? So it's a great question. If you guys can close your eyes and imagine Neil and Josh Van Horn with a measuring tape, I feel like it's the beginning of a really funny joke, but it's not, because they tried every way possible to measure how they could have 6 feet of distance, and you can only have one bed. And so if we still lived in Tusk, it would be a Tusk of 18 kids and 2 staff. And that sounds kind of cool, maybe, but you guys all want to be together. And we want you all to be together. So unfortunately, no, it wouldn't work, which is why we're talking about the possibility that staff may live out there, because there are some staff who would feel comfortable living by themselves. Obviously, if there's a vaccine available, some of this may change. And then there was a question, if there's a vaccine, will it be mandatory? So great questions. And I'm going to go back to my previous comment about creating a CSL COVID-19 medical committee. I worked in healthcare for 13 years before I came to the JCC. And even with all of that expertise that I have, I'm not a physician. And I want to keep my expertise in the things that I am really good at. And I want to lean on our community to help us with answering those questions. So the answer is I don't know yet, because I think that our community would do best if we surrounded ourselves with some really knowledgeable physicians and nurses and medical professionals to help us answer those questions. Neil, great question coming in on, will there be hobby sessions? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so just like with all the other questions that have been asked, the answer is sort of ambiguous, but I'll give it my best shot. And that is, depending on what camp has to look like in a COVID landscape, in terms of mixing ages and villages and staff and campers, that will dictate whether or not, or that will dictate what our daily schedule looks like. Right now, we're operating under the assumption that bunks and villages will go around and do activities together. Not so certain what hobbies look like. The good news is that adding hobbies and taking hobby requests is something that can happen relatively quickly. So in the 19th hour, we can still take requests from people and figure out a hobby scenario. But just like with everything else, we're waiting to see what our limitations are going to be in terms of mixing campers and staff together during the course of the summer before we make a decision about what the daily program will look like. With that being said, there will be, with our 2-week session model, there's a lot of opportunity for us to do a bunch of activities that maybe campers wouldn't normally get a chance to do, meaning there could be like a village hobby session. And I'm just sort of spitballing here, but let's say like on Tuesday afternoon, Tusk has hobbies, and we're able to offer like 3 or 4 different options for Tusk, sort of like a choose your own afternoon type thing. Some waterfront would be open, some pit cooking, maybe, and some like speedball or something along those lines. So we're gonna do the best we can to have all of our campers participate in the activities that they love most, and participate in things like hobbies, or like whatever hobbies will look like in a COVID world. So sorry, I don't have a better answer than that, but we'll figure it out as we get closer, and you guys will be in the loop as we make those decisions.
Thanks, Neil. So Ellen, great question. Does having campers leave for intersession and return for another session put too big of a risk on the camp community? So this is something that we have spent endless hours talking about, both in our JCC, but also across the nation with camps that operated last summer and with plans for this coming summer. So the camps that operated last summer mostly did a bubble, a 6-week or a 4 or 6 week lock-in, where once the campers were there, they were there, and that was the duration of their camp program. There is a chance where we may have to turn to that model. We recognize that for some of our community, that would be phenomenal. And for some of that community, that would be really challenging. So we wanted to go based off of our assumption and our experience from summer 2020, that we were able to successfully move groups of people in and out of camp with our sanitation and disinfection plan. In between sessions, we use an electrostatic sprayer and a team of staff from the JCC that would come in to help us clean and disinfect. I do think that there's a scenario in which we ask our families to to quarantine in between, in between sessions. So if you're home for intersession, that you stay at home and that you don't interact with other people and that you take a test before you come back. Again, those are things that we are going to continue to monitor and to get guidance from as we continue to move forward. Tough, but really good question about why the staff need to be in the cabins with the senior campers, and the recognition of the independence and tents. And we understand, and part of the answer is truthfully a lack of space. So in the village of Tusk, in order to be able to have all of the campers we there and not allow any of them, we have to have a place for the staff to live, and they can't not be in the village. We're required to have them be within the same vicinity of the campers, and there's no other place for them to go. That doesn't mean that we can't set up some way to have some sort of barrier in between or make them distant. But unfortunately at this time, we don't have the space unless we're able to move back to Tusk, which would be wonderful. Why does there need to be distance if they're all going to be all together all summer? So fantastic question. What we've heard from other camps and from the CDC and the Department of Health is that if we can move kids around, so Tusk, we're going to separate out because they're staying for 7 weeks. But that, to be able to move kids around safely, that they could still kind of remain in their cohorts and not be completely enmeshed with other kids. What we think now could look completely different from what happens on Go Day. But right now we have been told that there is a likelihood that we could just be told that there has to be 6 feet of space in between the beds, regardless of anything else, that's just a best practice at this moment in time with the unknown. And I can assure you that no one wants this rule to not be in effect more than Amy, Neil, and myself. And if we could make it go away, we definitely will. But what we really wanted to make sure was that we didn't put ourselves in a position where we planned alternatively, let's say using the village of Tusk, and 1 week before we find out that there's rules that we can't figure out how to implement, and the whole summer gets kind of kiboshed. We wouldn't be able to sleep at night if that happened. And so by allowing us to take a more conservative approach, it gives us the flexibility and the freedom to make changes as needed, while hoping and dreaming at night that we will be able to put our senior campers back in the village of Tusk. Will Tusk plan the banquet for the end of each non-senior camper session? So we don't know yet, right, Neil?
Yeah, we just don't have a great answer for that at this point. Will Tusk plan a banquet? I'm confident that the answer to that is yes. Will Tusk plan 4 banquets? I just don't know the answer to that.
Right, absolutely. And I think part of that will also be in talking with the group and what their interests are, and figuring out what our requirements are for meals and how we do our meal service and dining. And so I think it'd be kind of exciting to be able to sit with our Tusk group and imagine out what that could look like, and use your creative brains to help us solve that problem. Just to be clear, if we are outside or around other senior campers, we don't have to wear a mask. So I could say yes today, and then tomorrow, New York State could tell me something very different. So I wish I had the answer, but I don't, because we haven't received those guidelines yet. I think what we could say is that we hope that if you're outside and you're within your cohort that you won't need to, but I don't want you to hold me accountable to something that I just can't give you the answer, because I don't know what the state is going to tell us. Could Tusk be at home during intersessions? So you could go home. I think, part of our program is to be able to be at camp for the full 7 weeks. If you wanted to bring your camper home during one of those intersessions, then I think that that's something that we could talk about arranging. Unfortunately, we would not be able to change any of the cost structure for those days that you weren't at camp, but certainly something that we would be open to discussing with you. So Lissa, are cohorts T groups, or is the whole village or Tusk as a cohort? And I would like to know that too. I don't know that we know that. I think our hope, Lissa, is that a cohort is your entire Tusk group. That would be what we hope for. Then the next step could be that it's your T group. And if you're not in your T group, then if you're with your T group, you don't need a mask. But if you're not with your T group and with other groups, then you might need your mask. There's a whole matrix of what this could look like. Right now, we're planning and hoping that your whole village is a cohort, because we know that that, again, would change the dynamic of things. But we're going to have all of these things thought out so that if at the last minute a change gets made, we can plan accordingly and still make sure that we have a great summer. Neil, do you want to answer this question about bringing food? Can we still bring our own food?
Yeah, so I wasn't at camp in 2019, so I don't know what the policy was on food from the outside world, but what I can comment on is our continuing discussion with our food service provider about with Wolf Foods, with Michael Wolf, about what meal service and food looks like for this upcoming summer. And rest assured, there'll be plenty of food for everybody, and there's going to be fewer people in camp at any given moment. So one would hope with fewer people that the quality will go up a little bit, but like, I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that on the food thing. I don't know. Again, I don't know what it was like in 2019, but rest assured you will be fed and your dietary needs will be met.
So we caught up to our questions in the chat. So at this point, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, share a comment, or you can send something in the chat. Nothing really? Amy, do you want to just talk quickly about registration and about if people have deposits from 2020, how you're rolling over, and how people can work with you on registration over the next couple of days?
Sure. So if you have deposits left from last summer, they are in there. You probably can't see them because you're registering for the 21 season and they're still in 20. And that's just because we're waiting on a couple more families to let us know what they want us to do with it and are deciding before I close out the season and then push them forward. So if you want me to check and make sure it's there, I can, but it probably is. And I have a very long list of about 100 people that are like pushing deposits. And then, so if it's not done by registration day, I have a list to not charge you anyway, so you won't be overcharged. A couple like few little problems. If you don't see the senior camper session line, to just email me, and either I have to unlock it or I can just register for you. If you want to go back and change like bunk request or like tent request, cohort requests, you can either email me, because if you go back to redo it, you have to like resubmit a whole application and it becomes like a really big headache. I think that's really it. Oopsies, I unmuted. I'll put my email in the chat box because you can just email me directly if you have questions, if you get locked out, anything like that.
Just curious how many test people have signed up so far. So I think we had 20, Amy, am I correct? I think we have 20 participants signed up. Yeah, 20? Okay, so I think we have 20. We have 30 people who signed up for tonight. I'm sure there's some lap over, but we every day have been getting more people signing up. Early bird registration closes on Sunday. That doesn't mean that you can't register after early bird closes. It just means that we can't guarantee you a spot. So we, once for Tusk, once early bird closes, we would open it up to anyone who perhaps wasn't coming for summer 2020 for whatever reason, but might want to come for summer 2021. So if you are feeling pretty good about wanting to come to camp, again, as you know, the deposit is fully refundable. We would highly recommend that you go in and put that application in and save a spot. And you will continue to hear from us on a monthly basis about our progress and where things are going. And we will absolutely have continued opportunities for us to get together as a community and to chat and to work through some of these unknowns.
Hey, Lori, it's Paula. I have a couple questions.
Sure.
When I went to register for Talia and I clicked on the senior camper, it had a bunch of boxes for intercessions that I had to click, which I didn't. I assumed that the senior camper was the full 7 weeks and I didn't need to pay extra money for each intercession that they were there. Is that an accurate assumption?
That is an accurate assumption. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, so there might be some families will see every single session and a senior camper session and then all the intercessions. You just need to register for the senior camper. Other families will only see a senior camper. I really can't figure out why it's happening. I've been trying.
Okay, good. Another question is when I was registering Talia, it had a request for her bunk or her bed, whatever. And I assumed that meant a lower or an upper bunk, but I'm assuming there will be 0 bunk beds because of social distancing. So I wrote, well, it should be lower, but I'm assuming you're not going to have bunk beds. Is that also correct? No bunk beds, right?
So I can answer this question, and the way it's looking right now is that with our 6 feet of distance, campers will be able to choose an upper or a lower, and there won't be another camper either above or below them. It'll be like a stack. It'll be a stack, a full bunk bed stack that each camper will get to choose from. There may be some exceptions, just depending on our numbers for like bottom beds and top beds. But I think it's safe to assume that your camper will have a choice of whether they sleep on the bottom or the top, and there won't be another camper below or above them.
Okay. And then my last question, I'll turn it over to whoever else has questions, is Talia wanted to know where whether you're going to have a recording of this and where you would get that, because I think there's some other kids who couldn't be here who are asking about it.
Absolutely. So it is being recorded. It usually takes me until the morning to get it up because it takes a while to download it. So we will post it on social media tomorrow, and then it will be on our website. On the upper right-hand corner, there is a new tab called 2021 info, and that's where it'll be listed.
Thank you.
So give me until, mid-morning tomorrow, and it'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So are we technically T21?
Yeah.
So like Carol's going to say T21.
Unless you want it to be like some sort of new logo that you create that's like where T20 and T21 merge, and you like make something really cool, which, we love cool new things.
That would be like cool because like my Crocs say T20 and I really don't want to change that.
You shouldn't change your Crocs.
And my bat mitzvah shirt said T20.
Yeah,
so
right.
I can't collect everyone's.
Yes. So when we made the very unfortunate decision to cancel camp, and then New York State made the decision after me, I was haunted by the fact that I know many of you have had your bar and bat mitzvah close around your T year. And so we can, whatever you guys want, if you want to be some sort of merged group, then you guys decide, and that'll be great. There was a question that just came in, Ellen. Could we explain the bathroom situation in Mohawk? Neil, do you want to explain the bathroom situation in the Hawk?
Sure. So Mohawk has the foundation of the original bathroom that was there when the cabins were built. I believe 4 or 5 summers ago, it was completely renovated on the inside. So the bones are the same, but there are updated and new commodes and showers and hand washing facilities in there. The way we're looking at it right now is that one side will be for males and one side will be for females. But there will be doors, curtains, privacy, all of that throughout the process of us getting camp ready for 2021.
Great. Neil, one more for you that I'd love for you to answer. If you're an athlete, can we train on our own i.e. go for runs before breakfast, etc.?
So that is a great question, and we understand that there are some physical things that campers need to uphold during the course of the summer in order to be ready for sports or for personal health, whatever it may be for the fall. And there is, I don't think, a scenario at Camp Seneca Lake when campers are ever doing anything alone, meaning I'm a Tusk 21 camper, I'm going to wake up at 5 in the morning and I'm going to go run up Camp Road on my own. There is and has never been a scenario where that would happen, but there is opportunity to do that training just with conjunction with the staff or other campers that are there. We have the buddy system at camp, and we have our staff in place. So will you have an opportunity to train on your own? Yes, but what does on your own look like? That is something that will be dictated by the staff that are working in the village. Maybe it means running laps around the M field with a staff member, like sitting on the pitcher's mound or something like that. So you can run on your own, but maybe not on your own physically in the space.
Thanks, Neil. Any other questions? We are coming up on an hour, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but also just really appreciate all of you coming out. We know that this is not the summer, well, first, that you lost last summer, and that this is not the summer that you expected. But we have full confidence and faith that, you know, over all of the years, the Tusk program has looked differently. So my Tusk 97, looked different than your Tusk. We didn't have a T year, that wasn't a thing. We didn't have swag, there was no fight song. And we could sit and have conversations, and we could, in a friendly way, argue that both of our Tusks were the better years. And so I truly believe that it's about our staff and it's about our community and us coming together, that's what's going to make our Tusk summer really special. And I just want you to know that you have the commitment of Neil and Amy and myself and the JCC, that you are in the forefront of our hearts, as you've heard me say many times before, and that we are fiercely committed to really creative programming to make sure that you have a wonderful summer at camp. So with that, I will say Lila Tov. Keep in touch. We look forward to hopefully seeing your registrations come in, and we will talk with you soon.
Lori, I have one more comment.
Please.
Well, I guess two more comments. The first is that just to reiterate that we really are trying our best to preserve a quote unquote normal senior camper experience for all of you. We talked about a lot of different options for how to make Camp 2021 happen. And we felt like starting with Tusk and working backwards from there was the way to go, versus saying, you know, scrap the senior camper experience. We'll just have everybody be the same. So we really I want to reiterate that we're trying our best to give the senior camper experience everything that it deserves, and everything that you all have been looking forward to for a number of years. And the second comment is to mark your calendars, December 1st, Giving Tuesday. You're going to see a lot of stuff on social media from camp about it. National Day of Giving, and we're just going to be really putting the feet to the fire with trying to you know, raise some funds and get some new donors, and really engage the community at large. There's ways to be involved in camp, even if that means you can't attend camp for a summer or something like that. So thank you all so much for being flexible and for all of your patience with us while we figure this out.
Bye, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.